Well, Katie, do we want to go ahead and start? And then people will jump in as they can, only because we have a hard stop at 11.
Yep, I can do that. So I will go ahead and start. And also to Sharon, to your point, I actually asked a bunch of people in some moms Facebook groups about what their questions were. And so some of my questions are informed by that. And so I'll be sharing this video to them after the fact, but hopefully we get a good discussion going here, and I'm excited to talk to you all. So thank you all for joining, and thank you those who are joining after the fact. Today we're going to discuss, we're going to talk about, it's titled virtual learning, but it's really about how kids are learning during the pandemic. And we've brought together a great set of teachers and educators who I'm excited to have a conversation and really start to learn a little bit more about what this year has been like and what we've all been feeling and what our kids have been feeling, what teachers have been feeling, and what that means for education and what that means for how we've been going through this and what we're taking away from it. So with that, I'll introduce who we have on the panel, and then I'll dive into questions. On the panel, we have three illustrious panelists. We have Krystalle, who has been working as a preschool and kindergarten teacher for over 10 years, and 5 of which have been at the school in the hills. And then on a personal note, she has been, during the pandemic, she has been teaching children through a bunch of different ways, but most recently in a pod. So many of you know there's a pod that's at St. Luke's on the Lake. She's one of our fantastic teachers at school. We call it School on the Lake, and has done a great job of really sitting on the other side of the screen and being a teacher both in person as well as a lot of these kids are learning virtually. So she sort of has the experience of working with students on one side, but then also being on the opposite side as these kids are learning through virtual learning as well. Then we have Melanie Cravey, who has had a bunch of different experiences teaching in a bunch of different ways. So she's done Montessori, classical model, university model, private school, and public sector for the past 15 years. She earned her BA from Southwestern University at Georgetown, Texas. And she earned a master's in education and teacher leadership and gifted and talented in 2015. She's taught for a decade at Summer Wonders, as well as she's currently a remote teacher for Lake Travis ISD Bee Cave Elementary for 3rd grade. She's also a mother to 4 children. And then LoriAnn, as many of you know, is the heads up the Children and Family Ministries at St. Luke's on the Lake. LoriAnn, I don't even know how long you've been doing that, but you can, I don't know if that's
almost 13 years.
In your bio, I was like, I know it's been for a while.
It's forever.
Forever, and has been doing a fantastic job of engaging many children, including my own, via virtual learning over the past year. And she also has 3 children. So just welcome and thank you all for participating in this conversation today. I'm so happy that you're all here. So I'm gonna maybe just kick off and dive through some of the questions that I sent, if that's okay with everyone. And I wanted to start actually with how your students are doing. So I know many of you are working with a bunch of different students. How are you seeing the pandemic impacting them? And how is it maybe making it harder for some of the kids to learn? And also maybe are you seeing anyone thriving? And if so, what does that look like? And maybe what's driving that as well? So I'll let anyone jump in. It looked like Melanie had something to say. I'm gonna call on you.
It's like, I know, it's like the host would like you to. Okay. So I have actually had the experience this year and last year. Last year I was in person, and of course after spring break we didn't go back. And so kind of finishing the year out via technology when none of us really knew at that point how. And then I was chosen this year to start out the year remote because I have lupus, and so it was kind of a lottery. Then I was brought back in January because of some shuffling of numbers and things. And then I have just recently, the other remote teacher resigned and moved home to Florida, so I am now remote again. So some things I've been finding is kids are really, I would say, struggling for socialization. And that was something I noticed a lot in the being going back to in-person in January is the kids were just so excited to be on the playground with each other and in the lunchroom with each other, and things that you normally really take for granted. They were just starved for that kind of in-person interaction with each other. And now that I'm back remote, they are really asking for, can we get in Fun Friday breakout rooms? Can we have lunch together where we all sign in at the same time? And so I think that's just a real need, and just the emotions and the feeling isolated from other kids is really hard on kids right now. So.
That makes sense. Krystalle, have you seen something similar? I know you have a little bit of a different perspective with our kids. Are you seeing something similar with how they're?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, because I started off last year remote at home, which preschool and kindergartners, yeah, that's fun. Not at all. I saw more booties and feet and anything else, or they just simply would turn off Zoom and say, okay, I'm done. You know, their minds aren't meant for that. I also am Montessori, and nothing technology wise is Montessori, like nothing about it. Heck, I don't even know it that well. I was like, what am I supposed to do? What is Google Classroom? How do you know, it was such a learning thing. And then I had to go back in summer, and it was just like all the kids were crazy to see each other, and then trying to wrangle kindergartners and preschoolers to not touch and social distance, and they don't understand that, you know. That was hard because, you know, they hadn't seen each other for months on end, and then here we are back in person and we can't hang out. It was like, you have a corner, you have a corner, you have a corner. I do think it's harder for, you know, Montessori children. Like, this is unknown, this is crazy, this is, you know, everything's very hands-on Montessori. So with the pod, it's great because I can show them that concrete work, but that, you know, that's few and far between. Not everybody's in a pod or has the materials to do, you know. But I mean, there's one that, you know, I think is really thriving, but can I say her name? Do I not? She's Amelia. Like, she's very hands-on, you know. She takes it, she's like, I got my computer, I'm going, bye, you know. Yeah, she comes to me for help, but overall she's thriving in this. Like, but that's, you know, that's 1 out of 8, you know, that I think is totally just on board for it. Everybody else is like, nope. I'll wait for you to show me. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, I will say that even with Sunday school, we initially, and actually we've continued to have with elementary students, we've had a good number of kids that come online, you know, every week. Of course, you know, we send home bags. So they have what they, you know, so they have the things that they need so they can be somewhat hands-on. And, you know, y'all know me, I'm pretty crazy, so I try to make it pretty fun. But I will say that what we noticed is initially, and I think it's kind of continued with the older kids, with the youth, they would come on, like in the spring, they came on because we were still studying Star Wars, the spiritual side of Star Wars. Yes, there are links. But what we saw was a gradual, you know, they're not going to come on to a Zoom, because youth, particularly our youth group, they want to be, you know, laying on the couch together. I mean, you know, you're constantly having to talk to them about that. But anyway, the point is that we have seen in elementary Sunday school, kids that they definitely like being online so they can see each other, but so that they can talk and things like that. And with my pre-UICers, which is the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders that we do once a month, I picked up some new people when we went back to doing in person, because they didn't want to do online. So, and I will tell you, I have some answers to some of the questions that Robin has sent. And one of the things that she says, similar to what Krystalle said, she does a circle time currently, three days, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It's like for 30 minutes. And she said, even with just 30 minutes, she sees a lot of rear ends and feet, and faces up in the screen or blank screens. You know, so yeah, it's like Montessori. It's particularly hard to do anything with preschoolers because it is very, very tactile, very hands-on. And on top of that, she told me that she just realized recently that she has at least 2 parents who, if she delivers the stuff, she has to deliver it at least 2 weeks ahead of time because the parent won't even take it off the porch to use the stuff. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So, and I'm not calling anybody out. I'm just saying that it's not just the kids, but you also have the parents who are a little cautious, sometimes overly cautious. So, Melanie.
When I was going to say too, like with that statement with stuff not being picked up or whatever, a lot of times I've noticed talking to parents over all the different ways, I had 2 very broad spectrums, like it was 0 or 100. I had one parent tell me, this is way too much, I can't handle it, like I have to work, I have to do this, stop sending stuff. Okay, got it. And then I had another parent, this is not enough, I don't know what to do with my kid all day long. There was no in between. It was either like, I don't know what to do now. I'm either sending too much or not nearly enough. So everybody's lifestyle and the way they're living and things through all of this is obviously very different. So it totally has messed with, I guess, for a teacher's standpoint, like what to do.
The delivery system. Yeah.
Yeah.
You raised an interesting point, Krystalle, because, before we did virtual learning, I feel like teachers, parents drop their kids off at school and then the teachers really had that one-to-one relationship with the students. Yes. And now you've got the parent almost in the middle of that, playing this role that they weren't doing before, and sometimes not playing that role, and that being a problem. And I feel like in some ways, especially at the beginning, it was, I was probably dropping the ball in a lot of ways. In other ways, like if you think about the positive side of it, I feel like now I'm probably communicating with teachers more than I ever was before. And maybe that's a good thing, and maybe not, because maybe too much. But I feel like I've gotten a much better understanding of how my kids are being educated now. That's now that I've sort of had to be a cog in the wheel and had to sort of figure out how to make that work in a productive way.
Melanie, what's been your responses for, and I may be stepping over Katie, but I've just, with you working in public school with larger class sizes.
Yes. So, and I think what this speaks to is kind of where families are right now, and that it's such a different place, like emotionally for families, financially for families. And I've had parents who are working 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So I'm the only, and even virtually, I'm the only person with that child during the school hours. So, and then they get home and they're exhausted, and, maybe the child still needs help finishing up tasks. So you were speaking about, people not picking things up off the porch. I just think the emotional burden of families right now is unprecedented, with, I think, like mental health issues and substance abuse, and all that is just at such a state where, like, as a teacher, you're thinking about so much more. Like, it is something I took for granted so much, having my kids in my room with me, and just being able to set that almost that safe space for them, and that family space, and your relationship grows. I've got grandmas in the meet. I've got parents. I've got nannies. I've got nannies and grandmas who don't speak English, and and the language difficulty. And I've got kids at home alone who I've even had to get on with them at lunch and be like, okay, here's how you grill cheese, make a grilled cheese without burning down the house. So it's just, I think you have to have a lot of in the back of your mind about just really compassion for where people are, and trying to see things from where they are, and not having the same expectation you would have in the room, because it is not apples to apples.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think one of the responses that Robin sent back mentioned something about her word for the year is grace, and just having grace for everyone involved, because it's such a challenge, and we're all going through a difficult time right now. So I'd like to, we talked a lot about the students. I'd like to spend a little bit of time shifting, maybe talking about how teachers are doing. So maybe, Melanie, if I could get the other side of that story, you kind of talked about what you're working through with the parents. How is that influencing and impacting teachers? And what's the morale like, and how is that going?
Well, I can say pretty much everybody I know, this is the hardest year they've ever had teaching. And that includes like your starting year, where you're maybe my first year teaching full time. I was at Hill Country Christian, and I was with kind of a 60-year-old lady, and she'd been teaching forever and ever and ever and ever. And so she was just kind of babying me into the field. And so, I've seen the gamut of people who have been teaching a million years and are brilliant teachers in person, but the technology is just, even for people who are technologically savvy, it is so hard, like figuring out the meeting things and the breakout rooms and kids getting kicked off and people's internet failing. And I do something called Go Guardian, which is where you can see what all the kids are doing online, people not wanting to be in that, thinking that the district's, monitoring their remove, and teachers who were, I think emotionally, as I said, I was remote, then brought back in person. And then the other, my partner, my teacher, she actually quit and has moved home with her family because it was just too hard. And I really think, and a lot of my friends who started out remote and then went back in person said it was the best thing that's ever happened to them, because remote is overwhelmingly difficult. It just really is. It's not best for kids, I don't think. It's not best for families. There's so many things out of your control that can go wrong. And it's really hard. But I think it's also like, are we doing, what's best for the health issues of kids and extended families and, that kind of thing. And so like a self thing I had to deal with as a teacher in the beginning of the year was, I have extremely high standards for myself, as I think, most teachers in our area are really, really care a lot about how their kids do. And I had to come to a place emotionally with myself, about, okay, my expectations for a normal year and my expectations for this year are different, and I think my friends also, it's just, as far as educating, it's very difficult. Like right now, when I've gone back remote, I spend 20 some odd hours every weekend making all the remote materials. And as you said, some families are like, this is too much, blah, 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 blah. Or we don't want to get on any of the live things. We just want to do things asynchronously. But then they'll say, my child doesn't understand this and that. I'm like, well, if you were on, I explained it all, and other families are like, we want more, we want extension, we want challenge, we want, other things to do. So finding a balance, I think, is really hard. And like, kind of as a teacher being like, I feel like I'm meeting the needs of most people, knowing that they're outliers no matter what, who are, so I think Grace, it's funny too. I just day before yesterday, cut out a little quote on Grace. And I have a screen from when I was in person, because I was trying to protect myself with my lupus. And so I have a little privacy screen, which I don't need now that I'm on the computer. And I put my little Grace quote right there. And okay, today I'm gonna read my little Grace quote, and then I'm gonna get live with the kids, because you just can't, beat yourself up as a teacher and make it through the year. So
that makes sense. Krystalle, is that what you're hearing? And I know you stay in touch with a lot of folks from School in the Hills. Are you teachers sort of, that resonates with what a lot of teachers are feeling in the Montessori?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the biggest struggle I've had is like, when I was at home doing it on this end, I was like, okay, you don't come. you know, because at the end of the day, for where I was, it wasn't a huge deal. I'm like, these kids aren't going to lose everything. They're in preschool, right? You know, they're not in high school. I feel for the kids in middle school and high school and these other years that, I mean, trust me, preschool is very important, but that's easy to make up. You know, this other stuff for the older kids, like, you know, I feel so bad for them. But I will say, you know, especially like now, even in the pod, I'm not just working with me and one teacher. I'm working with me and this kid and that teacher, and then me and this kid and their 2 teachers, and then this kid with their 3 teachers, you know, and there's so much communication or lack thereof, that's hard to keep up with, because one person has this expectation, you know, and then there's only so many hours in the day, and then it is what it is, you know. Yes, grace, I've learned a lot about what that means and how to practice it and preach it and just keep going and going and going and going. At the end of the day, I feel like we're all doing the absolute best that we can. And hopefully that's enough for some, you know, and for some it's not, and that's okay too. But yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with everything Melanie said. Like, just here we are.
Well, and as a mother though, and I have another experience with my college kids. Like, I have 3 college kids in 3 very different situations. And one who has severe health problems, who's learning online, one who's got some developmental challenges, who's taking a long time but learning online, and one who's very much so a traditional school go, you know, be with the 5,000 people, sorority president kind of kid, and she's learning online. And they've all done really, really well. So I think it's a great thing for older kids, at least for mine, you know, and I wish as an individual, if I had had that opportunity in college, I had health issues, like I think I would have soared. So I think, you know, maybe some of the challenges we're having with younger kids with like attention and this and that and the other, like with young adults, you don't have a lot of those problems. So
that makes sense. That resonates. LoriAnn, I feel like you have an interesting perspective. You work with all sorts of ages of kids, and you sort of have a different, you work across a bunch of different sort of schools and environments. What do you see, and how do you feel teachers are feeling and educators are feeling these days?
Well, and I've talked to a lot of people too, and just, you know, in everything that we do, but as you can well imagine, you know, as far as how teachers are feeling,
how teachers are feeling.
I think they're feeling like they're doing the best that they can. And I think teachers would feel a whole lot better if they felt like they were being given the grace that they're giving back. Because I think that teaching in the traditional teaching mode, being in the classroom, talking to your kids, interacting, talking with the parents as you need to, that's hard. I substitute taught before I came to work here, and it's so hard. It's so hard to teach. It really is. I mean, it's a hard job, because you have, if you have 8 kids in the classroom, you have 8 different learning styles. If you have 22 kids in the classroom, you have 22 different learning styles, and you have 44 parents to deal with, you know? So I think teachers are, from what I'm seeing, I think what I've heard is that teachers are, they would love the interaction with the kids, and they're ready to be back in the classroom as soon as it's safe. And I can only speak for the teachers that I've talked to and that I know about. I know, you know, if you go nationally, there are some groups that are like, no, we're not going back in, because we can just sit home and not have to do anything, you know, whatever. That's not the point. Point is that I think we need to be more grace-filled toward our teachers, and because they're doing something that they have never done before either. You know, it's not just the kids, it's not just the parents, it's the teachers too. You know, there was no class for that. There was no class for that.
That makes a lot of sense. And one of the first questions that I got when I posted the topic on Facebook that I wanted to bring up, because I think it's a great one, is around, I think parents see that and they feel the teachers working hard and see the challenge and also care a lot about their kids and learning and all of that. What can parents do to help? What are things that parents can either can bring or can say or what are ways they can be involved that that can make it more effective? And given obviously it's not going to be perfect, but are there things that you've seen and you've experienced with working with students and with parents that have worked particularly well in getting kids engaged and helping you engage our kids? Melanie, maybe we'll go back to you. I'm gonna kind of keep going around.
Okay, sure. So I think one thing that really is useful is when the parents like set up the learning environment well for the child, because they kind of like set them up for success. So like when I get on at 7:40 with my 35 or however many it is, you can tell if the child has a dedicated learning space, if there's not siblings in the room crawling all over them, if there's not, dad working on the other side of the room, talking to his people. So I think if there's a dedicated kind of private learning space where they really can attend and focus, like if they're in the middle of like a huge extended family and there's so many other things going on, it makes it really hard for the child who's then in a Zoom call with a million other kids. Like if there's like they're fighting distraction all around. So I think if the parents set them up and with a schedule, I've seen parents like even have like laminated, like here's when you get on, and like they have little alarms that go off for the kid, and they have the Zoom, or we do a Google Meets, but bookmarked. And like for third grade, it's really helping those kids gain independence and not doing it for them. And that's kind of across the board, because I think especially like some subjects are more challenging to be the parents helping them with than others. I think math is real, like cut and dry, there's one right answer kind of thing. But I think writing is particularly difficult for parents to help, break things down into smaller pieces and guide children through. And what I really hope, what works when I can tell when parents are asking their children guiding questions rather than doing it for them, setting them up for success, meaning, they've got their schedule, they've got their alarms, they've got their bookmarks, helping them make sure they eat breakfast and get lunch and get outside and they're not on the computer for 8 hours. And also just helping them become more independent and really do their own work. I think when the parents get frustrated and are just like, it's like midnight or 2 a.m. and somebody's on, and you can, like, it's not 8-year-old Timmy who's on, it's mom is like, I'm done and I'm just doing it for them. I think then the kid backtracks and feels like, wow, I can't do it, which is not what anybody wants, right? So I think I'd rather a parent reach out to me and be like, okay, this is overwhelming, how do you recommend? And as partner together, then I see like, okay, nobody should have been on at midnight. Nobody should have been on at 2 a.m. That means we need to be working together better. And pretty much every teacher I know is on that same page. Like, how can I help you? Rather than it being like, a bad experience for everybody in the home.
That makes sense. And I think you're touching on a really important, just the communication is so important. I know that's something Krystalle and I have learned. Krystalle, anything you want to share or anything you want to add to that conversation?
Well, I mean, not that I am the parent, but it's like I'm on the parent end now, if you will. I mean, teacher and parent, I guess. I don't know.
Really?
Because I have to have them all ready for their Zooms and things. My phone is nothing but alarms. Nothing but every 5 seconds it goes off to tell me who's going where and how and when and what they need. And I think that's truly just the best thing. Like, our kids know outside there's this paper, there's this kind of paper, they know where everything is. So it does set them up for success, because every day is going to change, right? There's not necessarily going to use the same math paper on Tuesday as they used on Monday. So, they have everything readily available to them that they can go get it. So
I love,
just have everything ready,
I love what both of them said, which, and I'll tell you, when we started doing the things online for church, that was the one thing that I told Robin. I said, I want to make this to where we can hand it to the kid and the kid can do it, with us talking to them. I don't want to have to, the parents, they have enough on their hands. That's what I was hearing from y'all too, was, look, we have enough to deal with. We don't need one more thing. And so we really strove to set things up in a way where here's your kit and everything's labeled. So when you pull it out of the bag, it's that, so all mom has to do is remind them where the bag is, because I've had Leo Cusmanio tell me several times, hold on, Miss LoriAnn, I got to go find out from mom where she put the bag, because, Amy's so neat and orderly. She puts things away all the time. So, but I think that's, oh, thank you. People are just bringing gifts. That's great. I love this. No, I'm just kidding. That's what we can do for teachers. We can bring them gifts. But anyway, I think by structuring, as teachers, we're going to try to structure things where the kids can do them easily on their own. But having the parents be able to kind of direct them. And Melanie's right. You really need a dedicated space. Even when my high schooler, back in the spring, whenever we didn't go back after spring break, Sarah Nell, I was working from home in my study. She was working from home in my study behind me. But when she was online, I left the room. I just picked up the laptop and moved somewhere else, because she even at 18 needed that dedicated space. And so as parents, I think the biggest thing we can do is help our kids, like you said, be independent. If you need to set alarms, but at least think about what you're teaching these kids. I mean, you're teaching them, this is going to stay with them and help them as they move into middle school and high school and even in college, being better organized and knowing when they need to have things done. I think this is a big, there's a big advantage, because I'm always looking for the silver lining. So the silver lining is that this is going to help them. And as parents, we can help them and say, no, you have to do it this way because, you're online. And, then it's not mom telling them what to do.
I love that, LoriAnn. I love that you're looking for the silver lining. And I think that I feel like there's this theory that when you go through difficult times, or when we all go through difficult times, that those often cause innovations, right? Like a lot of the best inventions have come from really troubling and tough times. I think that's a great example of one where we've, now we're maybe teaching our kids to be more sort of self-enabled and all of that. Are there other things that have come out of the pandemic, or just teaching through the pandemic, that you would want to continue, that have been positives, that you'll continue to repeat following, following when we're all back to whatever normal will look like? LoriAnn, you're smiling. Do you have another thought about that?
One of the very first things that, as Robin and I were talking through, because she's my right-hand person. she is my right hand. One of the things that we talked about was the fact that, especially when we went to Zoom meetings, or whatever it was that we went to first and then to Zoom meetings, what we noticed is we were picking up people that we never saw in Sunday school before, like ever. And we were picking up people that maybe we'd see every 3 months or something in Sunday school. And what my response to that is that I have just been given the opportunity to plant the seed. We're not stopping this. And she and I both agree that somehow we'll always have some sort of a virtual component. So we may just have, well, she says Zach he'll use that instead of going to Sunday school. He said he'll come in and film everything for us. But no, but have the computer set up. And I'm going to have to talk to Kelly Sosa and find out how she does it, because she teaches middle school. And she teaches in the classroom, but she also is on Zoom. So I don't see how people do that. I don't see how you do it. God bless you. But anyway, but we're going to have to figure out some way to have, record live what we're doing with the kids in Big Room, or if we're in Snack Shack or wherever we are, so that then we can share that. And people can call in live, and and they'll have their Sunday school supplies if it's elementary. Yeah, we definitely are going to continue with some sort of virtual component. And I will tell you, I got a text from Kelly, by the way, and she said she feels like she got hit by a Mack truck. So last night, I heard it was kind of a delayed response, but she's sore all over, not feeling very well. So that's why she's not on with us. So Kelly,
Hey,
we have to
LoriAnn.
do better.
LoriAnn, I'll just mention, I think that's exciting because I feel like in some ways we haven't done as much with the Sunday school because I felt like the timing didn't work, but also just because Francisco's spending so much time on the computer that I kind of didn't want to go overboard. But to know that we're going to have the virtual option continue, then in some ways going forward, we might take advantage of it more when he goes back to school.
He goes back to school. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
I think even, there are a lot of people who are not going to be able to get the vaccine, or there's issues in their family where their kids really can't go back. We have one family here at St. Luke's that mom and kids, because of health conditions, were told they can't have the vaccine, at least not the current versions. So yeah, yes, we'll be here.
That's great news. That's great news. Krystalle, what are you going to keep doing? What are the things that you're going to continue after the pandemic that you've picked up?
Not many. I mean, from the
you have to, right?
I will tell you, like virtual church, virtual Sunday school, all of that, I am 100% for. Sometimes you don't want to get up and go do those things, but you still want to get a message. So I'm 100% for that. And the teaching standpoint, there is not much I would keep. No, it's not.
I like the honesty.
That's fair.
Like I said, some aspects of this, I'm a very introverted, extroverted person, if that makes any sense at all.
Yes.
But I like to stay, like now I'm like, I don't have to leave. I don't have to see people. Go on. It's fine.
I like it. That's fair. Melanie, anything from your end? Anything that you'll continue doing after? Are you in Krystalle's camp, or maybe there's
So Krystalle and I are on a very similar page. So my background is also, I guess I could say that my entry into teaching and everything was very hands-on, very project, very, big, messy makerspace. And all that is, you're dealing with materials and it's live. And so this was like a huge teaching mountain for me. Like, okay, I have to learn all this stuff. So I did, but it's not, my natural, like the way I like interacting with kids, the way I like teaching. But that being said, I do think it's like a paradigm change in education, and it's not all that. And I do think as far as faith and reaching the potential to reach out to people, as far as our church, I think it's such a huge thing. Like I know one of my daughters missed a lot growing up because she had severe immune issues. And so we go live, and so were she, going through this now, rather than she's kind of a young adult now, like we would have taken advantage of so many online things. And so I think like families who like geography is a challenge to getting to church, or, up a wider geographical range for St. Luke's. I think families with, kids with health issues like my family had, where they're scared to be around a lot of germs, or if the child's around germs, they're gonna, catch a million things in it. So that opens up, a safe, place for people who, their kids are medically fragile, that hasn't existed before. So I think, I think the opportunity as far as reaching people and blessing people is like so huge. As far as a teacher myself, it's very challenging, but like there are things where you're like, wow, and my kids just Friday, as part of a project, they had to do a Google slideshow with a timeline. And that's something I learned as an adult in graduate school. And these are third graders who are picking up on that technology easily with a very small, tutorial, and they run with it. Like, they're digital natives, so it's so easy for them. So I do think like that part of it, the part of being exposed, to a lot of different platforms and different ways of communicating and different ways of sharing is great. Just in my natural, like what I love and what I'm good at, it's not, technology. So, but I do think like as a church, it's an amazing thing, like where God can really bless so many more people. So.
I love that. That makes a lot of sense. All right. Well, I have one more question, and then maybe I'll ask if anyone else has any questions. But just thinking about where we are right now, and it feels like vaccines are more available, or at least are going to be more available for adults. And I know kids might be, 6 months or even 12 months away from that yet. But what do you think that transition, if you had a crystal ball, what do you think that transition to in-person school is going to be like for students? And are there things that you're going to be thinking about or doing with students sort of as they come back to normal differently than you would otherwise do? And what should, as parents, we be thinking about? Because this is a big experience for kids. So are there things that you would do differently?
I think now, as a teacher, we've always pushed during flu season to get vaccinated. And wash hands every 5 minutes, but it was really during flu season. It wasn't like that all the time. They've always said kids eat dirt, builds the immune system, right? Living through something like this and something so scary and how quickly all of our lives were rocked. I think it's just going to be a constant battle of, you got to keep, you always laugh, like, what did we do before? Did we not wash our hands? Did we not sanitize? Because I am a true germaphobe, but now it's like even more intense. The hand sanitizers, all of those things. I think it's just like, that's our new normal, really, is just, not wearing a mask. Can you imagine what that's going to be like? Because I can't. I see people and I'm like, you're missing something. Hello. Not everybody's making you wear a mask now. So to each their own. But, me, I'm like, yeah, guys, something covered. No, I don't know when that's going to happen for me. Even after I'm vaccinated, I will say I've been on a waiting list. What, Katie, like 3 weeks to a month now, still nothing. So that stinks, but it'll come, hopefully.
It will. I have to share something with you. You talk about something missing. So about 6 months in, Sarah's at college, and she calls me, of course she calls me at random times. So, it could be 2 a.m. She knows I'm up, or, it could be, 3 p.m. But anyway, she calls me, it's like 10 or 11 o'clock at night. She goes, Mom, you're not going to believe what just happened to me. I'm like, oh God, it's 10, 11 o'clock. Why? You're at college. What, something happened? That's not how you lead in with your mom when you're at college. But anyway, so she tells me that she started watching this movie, and she likes to watch movies with like foreign films, and we watch everything with subtitles. And she goes, and this woman gets out of the car and she's like walking around, and I'm thinking, there's something wrong. What is wrong? And all of a sudden I realize she's not wearing a mask. And I'm like, right, but it's a movie. She goes, yeah, but think that's what my brain has done. And when I look at things, why are they not wearing masks? So it's going to be a whole paradigm shift for us to, and to not make people feel uncomfortable about the fact that we're uncomfortable with them not wearing a mask, So, if I show up and I have mine on and I see somebody else on, we actually this morning had a visitor. It was a family, brand new family with 2 young children. And I'm like, oh, this is great. Nancy walks over to me after they're in and the service has started. She said, her dad doesn't have his mask on. And I said, but he had it on when he came in. She goes, yeah, but what do I do? And I said, do you want me to go talk to him? No, because you're the kids minister and we can't, you need to be nice. So she starts to walk in, and when she comes back out, I said, what's wrong? And she said, he put it back on. So apparently mom said, the wife must have said something too. But it's that whole idea of, we have a requirement at the church that you wear a mask. And so if you don't have your mask on, we have to say something. And that's hard, because we're trying to be welcoming. And we had another lady who came in. She's fully vaccinated, so she had her mask with her, but she didn't have it on, and we had to ask her to go ahead and put it on. But anyway, so it's gonna be tough, Krystalle.
Yeah, for sure. And I was gonna say too, like with the kids, and I know everybody's parenting and all that's different, but we're very a touchy family. We hug, and I don't know that that's always going to be a thing now, especially with these kids. Are we going to teach them to not hug? It's even once you're vaccinated, it's not 100% proof. I don't know. That to me is going to be weird, because with all of my kiddos, every morning it was go around and hug your friends and do this and do that, and I don't know if you can continue to do such things. Kind of sad.
It's true. It's hard, and hopefully we'll get. Hopefully sometime in the future we'll get back to a normal where we can continue to hug. But this transition period, sort of navigating that in a way that still makes kids feel loved and open, and still allows them to feel that, but while still keeping people safe, is a difficult one to navigate.
Well, and I'm having a memory of how when Francisco started school as a kindergartner and then went back after the winter break, and everyone in his classroom got sick. And I'm wondering whether there might be just like certain periods of the year where it might be a good idea to just encourage mask wearing, like after a break when a lot of people have been traveling and coming back with something. I feel like that happens at UT too, where the beginning of the semester, like people get sick. So maybe like just encouraging like mask wearing for a week after a break might be a good idea.
And maybe there are good ways to do that. I hear you, Natasha. I feel like we were sick like every spring. So
This is the first January that I haven't hit my I did because of my surgery, but normally we hit our deductible by January 15th, because me and the two younger kids, and sometimes when Rachel was home, we hit our deductible because we were at the doctor's because we got sick every January between the 7th and the 15th. I could go back and look, and we literally got sick. This is the first year I wasn't sick. None of us were sick.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. Melanie, anything else to add as you think about as we're coming out of the pandemic, things that you're thinking about with your students?
Well, that's funny too, because I guess there has been no flu this year. So when I went back in January, like there's no lice because everybody's spread apart, there's no flu because everybody's wearing the mask. There's no strep because we're covering up, the cough. And so that was like this brilliant, aha, when I came back, is like, I wasn't having to deal with, the absence folders and getting people caught up before school and, during, different little pockets of time, because nobody was out for all those other things. And I wasn't, catching things from the kids all the time. So that was like this brilliant, aha moment. So, and I think also routines for in-person have changed so much. We carve out those pockets of time. I was coming back really anxious to have everything very, very pristinely clean in the room. So I was cleaning every morning before the kids got in, and my rheumatologist said he wanted windows open and my small group table by the open window with the fresh air. And so I had windows open every day, and I had the fan on every day. And then when they went out to specials, to lunch, wherever, I was cleaning again with the Clorox. And the funny thing is my kids who came back and from being at home were as diligent as I was. If we were about to and we just worked it in as our schedule. Okay, we need an extra 5-10 minutes here for everybody to wash up. and we would all go wash up before snack, which you really generally don't do. You know, it's normally like a 9-10 a.m. deal, and you don't cart everybody to the to the closets to go wash up for snack. But like when we would exit a special or whatever, they'd all be like, where's the bottle of hand sanitizer? And we had these ginormous, you know, bottles, and someone would go grab it and they'd squirt everybody as they came back in the room. So that's like something, if we're able like to go back in person, I would love to keep, just because, wow, how great in-person learning is if you aren't dealing with kids catching things from everybody all the time.
Mhm.
That makes a lot of sense. I love
Those
that.
are really good points. I had not thought about that, but like talk about a silver lining, right? Because I mean, my kids are older, but I lived through the constant sickness and the lice and the this and that, right? And now we found like there's actually ways to minimize some of this stuff that is such a distraction and really interferes with learning. And it's not hard. It's really not, right? Wearing a mask, Kasha, for a short period of time where there's a higher level of risk, washing up more, using hand sanitizer, opening windows, using fans. There's, you know, now we've learned all these things that it will be really interesting to see whether they continue. But boy, you know, I would be, as a parent, really in favor of sort of doing some of these things because they're so easy, and we've gotten kids used to doing them, and they don't really, just like you said, LoriAnn, you look at a picture now and you think, where's the mask? Mm-hmm. You know, so you kind of hope, can we take advantage of this change in our psychology to do these little nothing things that really do make a difference, and they've been proven to make a difference.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like we lived for so long. I know, like every year, I just kind of know that I was gonna have to live in that pain. And I kind of didn't realize that there was a way around it.
You don't have to get sick every year. I know, right?
I know, I have like the crazy, I don't know, hand, foot, and mouth, or like, you like the things that you come up with.
You think about the things that your kids got sick with, right? Fifth disease. I mean, we had a lot of the weird ones in our house, and yeah, and it was really just a proximity cleanliness thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. I hope that continues. And like Kasha said, I mean, it doesn't need to be all the time or as extreme, but there are ways that we can preserve the piece there that really make a difference.
Yeah,
Maybe
I think we found the things that
Write
actually
your
really
school
work,
boards.
right?
Write your school boards. Now, write them now.
Yeah, right.
or your congressman, whatever you need to do.
Get out of it. I love that. I love that. Well, I know we've got a hard stop in a few minutes. I just wanted to take a moment, see if there are any last questions, anything you wish we would have asked, or Kasha, Sharon, anything that you want us to address before we wrap the conversation?
No, I think this has been a good range of perspectives. So thanks to the panelists for your thoughts and reflections.
Yeah, I agree. And Melanie, thanks for bringing up your older kids too, because I was actually curious. You've got the spectrum. You've got the full spectrum going, and I think it's very interesting to hear that the differences in effect with the older kids, the college kids, the really younger ones. Really interesting to hear the whole spectrum. And then Krystalle really honing in on the preschool effects. Some things that I hadn't thought about, how it's really so different depending on the child, but also kind of the age range and the developmental level.
I agree. This has been so helpful. And Krystalle just texted me and said her dog got sick, so she had to go there. She is.
Kids, pets, yeah.
Everyone's getting sick these days. But thank you all so much. I really appreciate you all joining and speaking with us today. I know I've learned a lot just about how I should be thinking about with my own kids, and our education is something I hold near and dear to my heart. So thank you all for all that you do. I know it's been a very difficult year, but we really appreciate you. And thank you for today.
All right. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Good to see everybody. Bye.
Bye.